And we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark constantly to elevate ourselves, but also trigger her fans so that they'll keep coming to games and rooting for her, and it's going to elevate the entire league. I'm honestly starting to think there's a strategy to this madness. There's a method to this madness.
Monica McNutt recently suggested that Caitlin Clark's popularity has more to do with her being a white girl from the Midwest than with her actual performance on the court. According to McNutt, it's not about Clark shattering records, hitting deep threes from the logo, drawing in new fans, or changing the game of women's basketball. It's about where she's from and what she looks like. Seriously.
Here's Monica McNutt, ESPN broadcaster, covers the WNBA. Not a bad broadcaster, but she just can't help herself. When given a chance to talk about Caitlin Clark, they're always going to racialize it and try to demonize Caitlin Clark's fan base.
In this video, we're breaking down a take that has basketball fans fired up, and not in a good way. Monica McNutt's comments have sparked outrage, and Jason Whitlock didn't hold back in his response, delivering a tough critique that left her backpedaling. The level of disrespect toward Caitlin Clark is getting out of hand, and it's time we talk about what's really going on. Ready? Let's dive in.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, I was just about to say same thing for Angel Reese when I had a chance to cover their games. But I think Caitlin represented, and again, some of this to me probably is not fair to her because it was not anything that she said or was truly based on her personality, but she was a white girl from the middle of America.
Did Monica McNutt really just try to downplay the most electrifying player in women's basketball? In a recent BBC interview with Katty Kay, McNutt claimed Caitlin Clark's popularity comes from being a white girl from Middle America, not her incredible talent. That comment didn't sit well. Social media lit up with backlash, as fans slammed McNutt for brushing aside Clark's historic impact on the game.
And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people, whether that is truly what she prescribed to or not. We can all say she is a dynamic basketball player and a force both on the court and the marketing sense. But I do think same thing with folks that may have fallen in love with Angel Reese that may or may not have agreed with everything they had to say either. We attach our fandom to these icons for all types of reasons.
Let's be clear, Caitlin Clark isn't setting viewership records because of where she's from or what she looks like. She's doing it by rewriting the NCAA record books, draining logo threes that leave defenders frozen, firing no-look passes that would make Larry Bird smile, and showing court vision that changes the way offense is run. Even Magic Johnson has praised her game. But somehow, Monica McNutt chose to focus on Clark's race instead of the way she's revolutionizing women's basketball.
So perhaps Caitlin Clark is relatable and popular, and people want to see her play because she's exciting as heck to watch and because she's not filled with anger. People are attracted to joy. Why was Magic Johnson so popular? Black, white, whatever. The man played with joy. Biggest smile on his face, happy-go-lucky Magic Johnson. Everybody loved him.
Fans weren't having it. Fire her, one user wrote on X. Another didn't hold back, saying, "This woman does nothing but give bad takes. I have no idea why she's even on ESPN." The backlash wasn't limited to just one group. Basketball fans from all walks of life came together to defend Caitlin Clark and stand up for her rightful place as a sports icon.
Let's put this in its proper perspective. When I think about Caitlin Clark, the operative word that comes to my mind is gratitude. There's an incredible level of gratitude that should be accorded to this young lady with what she did for the sport. That's not to take anything away from anybody else, but I often argue, when I've argued with folks about this, you think NBA players shouldn't be thankful to Magic Johnson? You think NBA players shouldn't be thankful to Larry Bird? You think NBA players shouldn't be thankful to Michael Jordan? Because guess what? There were great players that were in the sport before they ever arrived, who did everything they could to make the NBA what it was. But it was when those brothers arrived that it took on an extra dimension and elevated to another level.
What's really telling about McNutt's take is what she conveniently overlooked. If being a white girl from Middle America was the key to WNBA stardom, why haven't players like Kelsey Plum, Sabrina Ionescu, Sue Bird, or Cameron Brink reached the same level of popularity as Clark? If looks were the main factor behind Clark's appeal, these other talented players would have gotten similar attention, but they haven't.
Della Dunn, Sabrina, Brianna, Kelsey, Diana Taurasi. You had and have these white players in the league that never galvanize the people like this. All right. Now, granted, you can have some people come back and say, well, the media and the coverage wasn't as good as it is now. NILs and things like that weren't popping off. That has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with it, man. If they were that captivating, they would have got the eyes.
The irony here is impossible to miss. In her attempt to make a point about representation in sports, McNutt ended up undermining a female athlete who's arguably doing more to grow women's basketball than anyone in history. By focusing solely on Clark's identity, she ignored the years of hard work, dedication, and generational talent that have made Clark a game changer, all while claiming to support women's sports.
And then when you add in that she shoots logo threes, passes the ball like Magic Johnson and Pistol Pete Maravich, scores a lot of points, leads the league in assists, that like she's a great, great player, and she plays and shoots and releases the ball like Steph Curry. So there's the attraction to the exciting style of play.
The backlash against McNutt has been so fierce that fans are calling for ESPN to reconsider her role. When a sports analyst misses the mark this badly, ignoring the real basketball reasons behind a player's popularity, it's natural for viewers to question their credibility and objectivity. This controversy highlights the high stakes of sports commentary today, where analysts are increasingly held accountable for their words. What's most telling is how fans from all backgrounds have rallied around Caitlin Clark. Basketball lovers across America are united in their admiration for her game, showing that her appeal goes beyond race. This widespread support proves how sports can bring people together, not tear them apart based on demographics.
They can't have that discussion, and so they keep it real simple. And they give simplistic answers because they're not willing to have the true discussion about why Caitlin Clark is so popular. She reflects values that are relatable to kids who come from two-parent homes. That's regardless of color. Kids that come from two-parent homes can relate to Caitlin Clark because they have more in common with her values and the way she presents herself.
This isn't just about one bad interview. McNutt's dismissive attitude toward Caitlin Clark has been building for years. The receipts go back to 2024, when McNutt had the nerve to claim Clark deserved only 60% of the credit for the Indiana Fever making the playoffs, 60% for the player who single-handedly transformed the franchise. This wasn't a one-off hot take, it marked the start of a troubling pattern.
She's been spectacular and exceeded expectations. The pick and roll between Caitlin and Aaliyah has been fantastic. Kelsey Mitchell is having a career year, and all of those role players get a slice. I don't know quite how.
Well, that's a lot of pizza pie. I get you. But there's got to be one big slice, and that's Clark. What percentage are we talking about for Caitlin Clark? 80%, 90%, 95%?
I mean, listening to her all season long, I've called a couple of their games. She's team first. Statistically, you're probably looking at least 60%.
You know what really shows McNutt's bias? Her stance on the Rookie of the Year race. When it came down to choosing between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, McNutt didn't even try to hide her favoritism. She said her decision would be based on team standings, conveniently when Reese's Chicago Sky were in playoff position. But this is the same award that has always focused on individual performance, not team success. It's almost like McNutt was making up a new set of criteria just to avoid giving Clark the credit she deserves.
You would have the Sky in the playoffs right now, which means that Angel Reese, in theory, has impacted winning in a greater way. But I think the double-double streak that she's on, the 8 consecutive double-doubles, for Caitlin, she's leading rookies in points, minutes, and assists. There was terrific stats put out over the weekend by our colleague Michael Vopel about the percentage, about her being the player that has seen the most blitzes in the league. And so she's navigating a different level of defensive intensity, and rightfully so, because she's playing a point guard role for this Fever squad. So I think today, looking at the standings, you probably tend to lean Angel.
The goalposts with McNutt never stay in one place. When Caitlin Clark was dominating statistically, suddenly team success was the most important thing. Then, when Clark's team started winning, McNutt shifted to criticizing her defense. And when Clark improved defensively, there was always some new standard to meet. For someone who claims to be an objective analyst, McNutt's evaluation of Clark looks more like a conclusion she had already made, just searching for evidence to support it.
So we have the conversation with colleagues and friends, Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp. And my larger point in the conversation was the tenor and the prevailing narrative that has been created around this season's WNBA play is that it's the league versus Caitlin Clark. And that is just absolutely false. It is unfair to the women that have been there building this league to this moment so that Caitlin Clark's popularity could take it to the next level.
What makes this so frustrating is how differently McNutt treats other players. The enthusiasm she has when discussing certain WNBA stars completely disappears when Caitlin Clark's name comes up. You can see it in her body language, her tone shifts, and suddenly, she's the harshest critic in the room. Watch any panel discussion where Clark's achievements are mentioned, and McNutt's discomfort is obvious, like she's physically allergic to acknowledging Clark's impact on the game.
While Caitlin is fantastic and I think she's going to have an incredible career in the WNBA, there are women that were worthy of coverage prior to her arriving, and I just will not be silenced when it comes to that.
This goes beyond just one analyst's opinion. McNutt represents an old guard that feels threatened by Caitlin Clark's ability to bring new fans to women's basketball. These established media voices built their careers around certain narratives about the WNBA, and Clark's explosive popularity challenges those very narratives. McNutt's resistance isn't really about Clark's skills, it's about what Clark represents, a changing of the guard that some in the media aren't ready to accept.
Okay. To me, yeah, jealous, sure. I mean, would you be jealous of somebody that got $28 million a shoe deal or whatever the deal is before you step foot in the pros?
The resistance to Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise was about to face its biggest test yet as the anti-Clark narratives reached a boiling point. That's when Jason Whitlock stepped into the fray with a take so blunt it forced everyone to confront the underlying issues with the WNBA's marketing strategy. On his show Fearless, Whitlock went straight to what he saw as the heart of the matter.
There's that kernel and element of truth that Caitlin Clark and all the little suburban white girls that have hopped on board with the WNBA have hopped on board because Caitlin Clark she resonates with them.
Though his language was provocative, Whitlock's point resonated with many fans who felt there was an agenda-driven bias against Caitlin Clark. But Whitlock didn't stop there. He framed Clark as something the league seemed hesitant to embrace, a relatable figure who plays with pure joy, not attitude. She's not playing with anger, she's not playing with a sense of entitlement, he stressed, suggesting that Clark represented values that connected with audiences who felt disconnected from the league's prevailing narratives.
She's not playing with anger. She's not playing with a sense of entitlement. And yes, people find that relatable. And Monica McNutt with the liberal white woman here, they're not prepared to have that conversation that there's a demographic filled with anger and entitlement and a victimhood mentality that people, regardless of color, who are not filled with anger, who are not filled with entitlement, who are not filled with a victimhood mentality.
The reaction to Whitlock's comments revealed a striking divide in how fans view the WNBA's marketing strategy. Many fans rallied behind his assessment, with one user on X simply stating, "Yes, people find that relatable." Another fan expanded on this, saying, "She reflects values that are relatable to kids, regardless of color." These responses highlight a major disconnect between the league's messaging and a large portion of potential viewers.
They like Caitlin Clark because she's not a victim, because she doesn't seem to be entitled, because she doesn't seem to be angry. And so they find her relatable. I do. And I don't like everything Caitlin Clark does.
What makes Whitlock's intervention so significant isn't just the controversy it sparked, but how it exposed the paradox at the heart of this debate. The WNBA is in the awkward position of celebrating Caitlin Clark's unprecedented ability to attract new viewers while allowing voices like McNutt to undermine the very qualities that make Clark so appealing to these audiences. The uncomfortable truth Whitlock brought into the spotlight is that the league seems caught between two competing visions, one that embraces Clark's mass appeal to grow women's basketball, and another that's determined to downplay her impact in favor of maintaining existing power structures and narratives.
She's not Angel Reese, who can barely make a layup. She's not Asia Wilson, who is 6'4" or 6'5" and completely unrelatable to most women. You know what percentage of women are 6'4" or 6'5"? It's a tiny, 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 infinitesimal percentage. That's not relatable.
What's particularly revealing is how this debate has exposed flaws in the WNBA's marketing strategy. By allowing analysts like McNutt to frame Caitlin Clark's popularity as simply a matter of race, they risk alienating the very audience segments Clark has successfully brought into the fold. The irony is that Clark's appeal goes far beyond racial boundaries, despite what McNutt and even some aspects of Whitlock's argument suggest. Her draw isn't limited to suburban white fans, it spans basketball lovers of all backgrounds who are drawn to her electric style, competitive spirit, and genuine passion for the game.